The book of Ruth is set up like a classic romantic comedy. In the first chapter, you meet the female protagonist, Ruth, and you find her down on her luck. You also meet her quirky female friend, Naomi, who in this case is also the mother of her deceased husband. They move to Bethlehem, a little town just to the south of Jerusalem. Once they arrive in Bethlehem, the two women struggle to make ends meet and are forced to glean the fields, basically picking up whatever leftover wheat is there after the harvesters are finished with it. It's here that we meet the male protagonist, Boaz, who shows kindness and compassion to Ruth and Naomi. At this point, you just know these two people are going to become a couple. But like most good romances, there is a plot twist that threatens to keep them apart. And that comes in Ruth chapter 3. When Ruth tells Naomi that she's met a nice man and his name is Boaz, Naomi practically jumps for joy. You see, under the law of Moses, there was a provision called the levirate marriage. The law basically said that if a woman's husband died, she could ask her husband's nearest living male relative to marry her and provide for her. Ruth and Naomi were starving, and Boaz was pretty well off. So Naomi's solution was just to have Ruth invoke the law, Boaz would have to marry her, and all their problems would be solved. You can imagine how for Ruth, who was not from Israel, this could be an awkward situation. She wasn't familiar with Israelite customs, but she trusted Naomi, and she also felt an obligation to take care of her. There's actually a scene in verse 3 where Naomi tells Ruth to wash up, anoint herself, and then she shoves her out the door to go and tell Boaz that he has to marry her. Following Naomi's instructions, Ruth went to the threshing floor to make her grand proposal and found Boaz asleep. She must have been overwhelmed, not knowing if she should just give Boaz a big shove, and while he was still rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, tell him that he has to marry her. It's the law. Instead, probably feeling a little overwhelmed at the whole situation, Ruth laid down at Boaz's feet. It was midnight when Boaz, who had been assigned to protect the wheat, woke up and was startled to find a woman asleep at his feet. He in turn woke her up, and Ruth panicked and immediately invoked the law. Boaz's response to Ruth says a lot about both of them. Here was a woman, destitute and offering herself to him, and it would have been easy to take advantage of her. Instead, he said, "Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, neither poor or rich. And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the people of my city doth know that thou art a virtuous woman." Boaz recognized Ruth for her goodness. He saw that she was virtuous because she'd given up everything to help Naomi, and her goodness was something that everyone in Bethlehem could see. So cue the orchestra, the love theme plays, and the two get married and live happily ever after, right? No, this is where the plot twist comes in. Boaz's response indicates that were it up to him, he would have married Ruth and taken care of her and Naomi without any reservations. But because Ruth invoked the law, and the law required her to marry the nearest living kinsman, Boaz was forced to tell her that there was a closer male relative than him. So now they can't be together. She has to marry this other guy. It seems like one more comedy of errors has kept our favorite couple apart. Still, even though he couldn't marry her, Boaz was interested in protecting Ruth. He told her to stay with him so that no one could see her sneaking out and get the wrong idea. He gave her another measure of wheat to provide for her and Naomi, and finally, he agreed in the morning to go and seek out the nearest kinsman himself and bring him to meet Ruth. Unfortunately, this isn't the end of the story. I don't want to spoil things, but like any good romance, the couple overcomes their misunderstandings and ends up together. But Ruth chapter 3 already told us everything we need to know to really root for them. Ruth was selfless. She never hesitated to take action when others needed help. Boaz saw the virtue in Ruth and did everything he could to protect it and make sure that she was provided for. Though Boaz was a blood descendant and Ruth came from another country entirely, their actions showed that they were both worthy to be considered members of the house of Israel. This righteous man and woman eventually became the ancestors of the most righteous person ever, the Holy One of Israel, even Jesus Christ. But at this moment in time, they were just a good man and a good woman taking care of the people around them. In the same way, when we engage in small acts of charity, we honor the legacy of the members of the house of Israel. The book of Ruth has no large battles, no astounding miracles, just normal people treating each other with respect and kindness. It's usually the same way in our lives. The Lord carries out his work with good men and women doing the little things that make the world a better place.